Hey, what's up guys? My name is Ishono. Welcome back to my Game Engine series. So, last time we took a look at IamGUI events. Definitely check out that video if you haven't already. We implemented all of the events that we wanted to do for IamGUI so that we can actually interact with it and use it inside Hazel. That's all done now, which is pretty cool. And today, check this out. I've got a bit of a different set. That's because my place is currently getting a little bit of a renovation done. And so because of that, everything's kind of just all over the place. I'm staying here for the time being. And because of that, I thought that I would kind of use this opportunity, since I'm so busy with all that renovation stuff and didn't really get a chance to make a proper episode, I guess. Some people will call it a proper episode. It's today we could just kind of take a look at the GitHub repository that is Hazel, and kind of just, because I really haven't even spent an episode on that yet. And we can kind of go through that and see all of the kind of issues and pull requests that people have made. I'll introduce a lot of the things that we'll actually be doing on that GitHub and how I want you guys, I guess, to submit, to collaborate with me on Hazel. And then we'll also just implement some of those fixes, I guess, inside this video, because I've been meaning to do that for such a long time, and I thought this is perfect because this doesn't require me spending hours preparing for the episode. I can just kind of just do this on the fly and see what we have available to us on GitHub. And just this week is just perfect for doing that. So let's just jump in and take a look at that GitHub repository and see what we can actually do. Okay, so this is the GitHub repository for Hazel. If you guys aren't familiar with that, the link is in the description of every single video of this series. So it's just github.com/Ishono/Hazel. So we have this GitHub repository, which contains all of the code. Now, I do want to give you guys a bit of a tour to those who aren't as familiar with Git. Obviously, for a lot of people, this is probably your first GitHub kind of project or Git project. Just this first kind of big software project in general, I know for a lot of you, so that's why I kind of want to give this overview. For those of you who understand how all this works, of course, and are more advanced, then feel free to not listen to this information, although I still would, because you probably learn things that you might not have known. Okay, so the first thing I want to focus on is this commits thing. So people ask me, people who watch the series and who aren't up to date don't necessarily want to just download the code and take a look at everything immediately. They actually might want to see what the code was like as of a certain episode. Well, guess what? You can actually do that. If you go back, if you click on that commits thing and then look at this, you have all of the different commits that I've made. And typically I commit once per episode, right? So for example, the episode about precompiled headers, well, this is that commit, right? The episode where I just added, speed log and all of that kind of stuff, and maybe pre-make and generated projects, that is this commit. If you click on this hash here, I'll open it in a new tab, you'll see exactly what's changed. So for example, I think this is mostly not code changes, but you can see that I added this pre-make file. This is all the green changes. In the project files, this is what changed. Let's find a better commit for actual code. So maybe like this dispatching events from GLFW. You can see that in the application.cpp file, this is what has changed, right? I've added all this green stuff. The red stuff has been removed. Very cool, right? Because you can easily see the changes, and if you want to implement it if you're following along with this like you should be and typing out all the code yourself, which is probably the best way to learn, you can see exactly what's changed. In case something didn't work out or whatever, or you just want to kind of see exactly what I did to actually solve a problem, you can do that by just looking at this diff. So that's really, really useful. But one thing that people don't know as much is that you can click on this button, which is right next to it, to actually browse that repository at this point in history, right? So again, with the pre-make one, if I click here, I will see this whole repository as it was, you can see, as of that commit, right? So that's really cool, because you can then download this, or if you're actually using Git on the command line, for example, on your computer, you can actually just check out this commit specifically, right? You can actually do that. And you can see that's kind of the tree, I guess. You can actually do that and just recreate that version of Hazel, which is really cool, again, if you're following along and you want something a bit more simple. Because as time goes on, if you're watching this video and it's like a year from now and Hazel is this huge engine, you might still want to implement the basics and start from scratch. And you can still do that because you can go through the history and see what it was like at any given point in history, which is really, really cool. So a lot of people don't know that, so I just wanted to kind of make that clear. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is all of this kind of collaboration opportunity, right? Because I have actually, I do actually intend on using this. I want Hazel to be a project that we work on together, and GitHub facilitates a lot of kind of common software engineering processes, I guess, as far as teamwork and collaboration goes. So we basically have 3 or 4 even main things here. We have issues, pull requests, projects, and the wiki. So we'll start with issues. Issues are just like essentially anything, any tasks or problems or questions or whatever that are related to the development of Hazel are usually discussed here and just raised here. So if you find a bug in Hazel, you should open an issue here, right? As time goes on, I will start adding things like labels, and I'll kind of just customize this list to make it a little bit more usable for us. Obviously, I'm not using this yet. And there's even milestones, which are these basically collections of issues and pull requests for a particular release or project. So there might be like, you know, the renderer, for example, or maybe like a certain release we're working towards. And we can basically attach a bunch of issues to that and say that when all of these issues are complete, that means that that's it. When all these issues are closed, the release is ready to go, or the renderer is complete, or whatever, which is really cool. And again, I intend on using this stuff in the future as well. But we'll go through these actual real issues in a minute here. But that's basically what issues are. Just little kind of, you know, oh, hey, I was wondering about this, or, you know, I found a problem in Hazel and just wanted to let you know that if you click, you know, if you try and scroll in IMGUI or whatever, it doesn't work sometimes. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Pull requests are code that people have actually written that typically either implement features or, I guess more often, fix little things. So for example, this is a great example, this Start project. This person has added Start project to be sandbox in Premake. Okay, so if we look at the files changed, you can see that in Premake, they've just added these 2 lines of code here that basically set Sandbox as a startup project in Visual Studio so that we don't have to, like, you know, go to Sandbox and then right click and hit set a startup project. Because a lot of people actually, I think Hazel ends up coming up as a startup project or whatever. People try and like run that and then they get this error which says unable to start program, because obviously you're trying to run a DLL file, which is just a library, and you need to run an executable file. So that's like a really great fix, right? Really simple, really easy. I'm not, like, I certainly don't intend to just kind of be like, oh yeah, this is a good idea, let me just integrate that myself. No, why? It's a pull request. It's obviously has no conflicts and can be merged easily. Why wouldn't I merge that, right? So I do intend on, again, getting help from you guys. Add Linux support to the project. Stuff like this might be a little bit more complicated. You know, this person's added a bunch of make files. I would probably need to actually test this and make sure it works properly. That's a bit of work, so that might be something that isn't trivial and something that we might want to explore more. And then, you know, stuff like added CMake support to project. I think I actually replied to this saying that we would use Premake, but maybe that was an issue. I don't remember. Usually for large tasks like this, it's better to open up an issue first and to actually just make sure that this is in fact the direction we want to go in. So I think, or maybe it wasn't that one, because I definitely remember commenting ages ago on a Premake, on a CMake thing. I don't know if it was a pull request though. Oh, and make sure you obviously look through these ones or search through them if there's something that you want to do but you're not sure about. Did I really not comment on this? I don't believe that. I guess I didn't. Huh, look at that. I thought I did. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, that's a great idea, for example, because we don't need that. Premake can actually generate CMake files anyway. So that's that. But anyway, pull requests are for that kind of stuff, right? So if there's little tasks or just even large tasks that people want to kind of do, then I'm happy to take a look at that. Obviously stuff like add Linux support to the project, that would require an entire episode probably to go through. So I'm not sure how that would fit in. Please be patient with me regarding this stuff, because obviously I have my own kind of agenda and plan as to how I'm writing Hazel. And if suddenly I need to look over this, then that will take time. And I don't know how I'll fit that episode. Anyway, again, I wish I was doing this stuff full time. That would let me do stuff like that, but at the moment, this is just how it is. Projects are really cool as well. It gives you like a little bit of a Trello board, essentially, so that you can kind of add issues to certain things, plan your projects. I'm not going to read all these features. You can read that yourself. But the idea is, just gives you like a bunch of cards, and I think there's even some examples, maybe if you hit learn more. Yeah, you get basically something like this, right? Which again is really cool. I intend on fully using this. Right now we're just doing the basics. So I don't think there's a huge need to do this, and I'll probably end up doing most of this stuff offline. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know if I should show how I make all of this in a video, or if it's something that I can just do kind of offline, you know, while I'm on the train or something. Because again, that's up to you guys. I'm happy to do it in a video in front of you. If you want to kind of see this and you want to see me kind of talk through all of this stuff and like, you know, what I'm thinking about certain issues and tasks and how I prioritize, that kind of stuff. The wiki, again, useless right now because Hazel's like, oh, well, I mean, maybe not useless because maybe there could be like a bit of a more extended README here as to how to actually set up Hazel and build it. Because again, you know, if you look at the Discord, if you look at my Discord server, there's so many people, you know, not being able to kind of run Hazel or having issues with Hazel, which again are trivial fixes because like a common one I've seen at least 5 times is again because this is the startup project and people just don't know that you need to set it to sandbox, which again hopefully will be fixed because of that pull request, but you get the point. So that might be something that the Hazel wiki might be used for. Again, something that you know, I mean, I can create the first page now and just save it, but that will kind of just make the wiki, and you can see now it's suddenly like the wiki is just up. So anyone can edit this, anyone can add pages, I'm pretty sure. So feel free to kind of, you know, write down stuff there. I'll obviously have to moderate it, and I've got a bunch of moderators as well who'll help me out with that. But yeah, I plan on obviously having a lot of kind of information here as well. So that's an overview of all the kind of stuff that GitHub has for us. So now let's kind of just go through these and see if we can actually implement them into Hazel and fix them up. So macOS support, these are the issues, not the pull requests. Let's just quickly read this. So how can I use the code in Xcode on Mac? If there's a way, of course. So yeah, again, pre-make Xcode 4 should work. Now I believe that I probably have made specific things here that are Windows only. I think if you look at entry point, which is here, yeah, currently it's got ifdef HZ platform Windows because I haven't tested this stuff on Mac, so I don't know if it will work on Mac. I do plan on doing an actual pass on other operating systems very soon, probably Linux maybe first, because having a Mac actually requires Mac hardware if we exclude Hackintosh. And I do have a MacBook, but it's like, I think from 2013, so it's a little bit old, but we'll see. I might just quickly try and do that for you guys anyway. And once I've done that, that's when I usually like to add stuff like that. Like for example, when I'm writing in Visual Studio right now, I don't really like to do stuff like, you know, else if HZ platform Mac OS or something like that, just because I can't test that code anyway, and I don't want to just write code. So if you look at this actual code, there's nothing really, you know, Windows specific in it. So if you take away this ifdef, or just add something like, you know, or Mac, right? If defined HZ platform Windows or, you know, Mac, then it should actually work. But again, I haven't tested that, and that's something like different operating systems will be something I would do, and the proper version again would be probably to do something like that with a macro, because eventually we may want to have specific Windows stuff here. For example, we may want to actually have the winmain function instead of just main, because we may want to do some special kind of, some more closer integration with the actual Windows ecosystem. So those are kind of my thoughts there. And then obviously, actually, I guess it won't work though in general, because Hazel API right now, if we go to, what is this, core.h, this only supports Windows right now, and we have declspec DLL export instead of the appropriate attributes or whatever for Clang, for the macOS kind of Xcode Clang compiler. It's like a special version of Clang essentially, but it's mostly Clang. It's mostly just Clang. So basically for Clang, we need different compiler intrinsics and not just declspec. So again, something that needs to be done, and something that will be probably done quite soon. But again, just for now, I just want to set up a base kind of framework, and then from there, I'll extend it to cover Mac as well and Linux, because for now, as I've kind of mentioned, Hazel is going to be kind of Windows only for the first like milestone maybe. And again, milestones is something I could document probably here. But for the first little while, Hazel's going to be Windows only, because it's better to just focus on one platform and get a bunch of stuff running rather than waste time on a lot of other platforms and then just get nowhere. Because again, this is a video series. I need to keep this entertaining and I need to keep this project going, and I don't have much time to begin with. So it's a lot better to just actually have most people happy because most people are using Windows. And then people who are using macOS can just add it themselves if they really want to. Anyway, that's my opinion on that issue. I might write a comment. I don't want to do it in this video just not to waste time, but that's what that is like. Yeah, so why did core and client loggers have to be shared pointers instead of unique pointers? Yeah, I mean, because that returns a shared pointer. If we look at log.h, you can see that this score is a shared pointer. So we return this. We return it by reference because we don't need to increment the reference count. We're just referencing it, right? We're not actually transferring ownership or getting ownership of this core logger. I always want the ownership to be held by log, and it's static anyway, so it will be the lifetime of this actual module. Yeah, there's all I want is access to it, hence the return by reference thing. You could return by value and just have it in a scope. I personally don't like doing that. Usually I use other forms of reference counting, like intrusive ref counts that are actually part of the object. So in that case, usually I do return by reference when I don't want that ref count to increment. Because why make a copy of this? There's no ownership going on here at all. I'm simply I simply want access, read-only kind of access to this. No ownership transfer at all. So I will like this comment, and I can probably close this issue because that's the answer right there. Okay. So build fails when building for the first time. Yeah, this is quite an issue I've seen. And in this pre-make video, basically what happens is, and I can demonstrate this to you guys, is if you try and build, let's build Sandbox, it actually ends up failing because it can't copy a certain file. So let's look at this. Okay, that succeeded. That's because, let's just clean this. And also I want to maybe delete bin and binint, delete those directories. Let's try again. Okay, so you can see that failed, one failed, and the reason it failed, if we scroll up a little bit, you can see it says over here that that command kind of didn't work. So if we look for that here, there it is, there's that error. So the command if exists blah 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 failed, and the solution to that, I guess, is just running it again. The reason is that it tries to actually run that code before these certain folders have been created. And what that post build step actually does, if we look at the pre-make file, is it tries to copy, and this is inside the Hazel project, it tries to actually copy the output, I guess, into Sandbox. Now, the thing is, Sandbox hasn't been created yet, right? Because we haven't compiled Sandbox, we've compiled Hazel, and this is a post build command on Hazel. Now, here's the thing. The reason why this is a post-build command on Hazel, because this person says, remove the post-build command on Windows field from Hazel and put it into the Sandbox project. That's what I actually usually ended up doing. Now, the reason I didn't do that for Hazel is because if you do that and you make a change to actual Hazel and not to Sandbox, then it won't actually copy the latest file because it doesn't build, right? Sandbox, you haven't changed Sandbox, therefore Sandbox itself doesn't build, it's already ready to go. You've changed Hazel, and because it's a dynamic library, under certain cases, I mean, if the whole library file has to change and has to relink, obviously it will, but under certain cases, it won't actually copy it, right? Which is why, like, my approach to this was just basically to say that obviously every time Hazel changes, that's when we need to copy that DLL over. So that we get the latest version of it. Now again, in this case, Sandbox folder doesn't exist. So unless someone has a better solution to this, because I don't like this either, I would rather just worked. Maybe we can put a post build command to actually make that folder if it doesn't exist, or maybe this copy thing. I mean, honestly, this copy function should just make directories if they don't already exist. Maybe there's a flag we can add to that. I might explore that, again, just in my own time. But that's kind of why this is the way that it is. So yeah. Okay, this is cool. I read this. I like this. Did I actually like this? No, I didn't. I'm gonna like it now. Pre-make does have functions for like static or dynamic runtime. So static runtime on, and then there's also, I think, runtime, which again, either debug or not. Okay, so runtime release, for example, and this does a non-static link. So this is great because we did some stuff like this, which was really annoying because this was a multi-threaded debug DLL link of the runtime library. However, if we actually look at, and I always forget where this is. I think it's in like language. No, it's not. So code, C++ code generation. You can see multi-threaded debug. No DLL here, right? Just MTD. But if we go to the command line, we have an override for it, which again, really annoying because it has to, let me just kind of make a change here so that we can recompile it. You can see over here that it says command line warning, it's overriding our multi-threaded DLL, sorry, a multi-threaded debug with multi-threaded debug DLL. I don't like that, obviously. So what we can do instead of having this build options flag, which I'm going to remove now, is in debug, instead of having MDD, we can just do runtime debug. So runtime debug, and I don't know if, yeah, I guess let's do debug, okay? And then for this, obviously, this becomes runtime release. Now, static runtime is what we would use if we wanted a non-DLL, so just multi-threaded debug as our option instead of multi-threaded debug DLL, which is what we want. So that's all we have to do, and then that's way better than MD, and it doesn't have to be Windows specific either. It is for now, but it doesn't have to be, because that should work for all kind of systems. So that's that, and that's really cool. So thank you for people who brought that to my attention. I was not fully aware of that. So runtime release and runtime debug. And I think that's it. So the /m stuff shouldn't exist anymore. So now if we actually rerun that generate projects and we reload all of this stuff, we should be able to pop into, say, Hazel and see that this is, so this still says multi-threaded debug and not debug DLL, because I think we also need static runtime. So runtime is just which one, debug or release, and static runtime on or off, you can see it sets this to DLL or not DLL. So by default, it must be on. So we also need static runtime. I thought static runtime was basically something that you enabled. Let me reload premake. Something that you just enabled for if you wanted static, but apparently not. So we can actually just do this up here. So static runtime off, okay? And we'll do that for both Hazel and Sandbox. So now if we rerun our generate projects and we look at this, so I actually have an override which says static runtime on. Let's get rid of that. This is becoming annoying. So static runtime off is what we want. I don't know why I had that on. So static runtime off for both Hazel and Sandbox. Okay, now let's generate our projects. There you go, succeeded, and reload all. And then inside Hazel, now we have multi-threaded debug DLL. Perfect, and we don't need any overrides. So let's build everything now, and hopefully this will all work. Okay, cool, you can see that it succeeded, and obviously we don't have any kind of overrides or anything like that. Brilliant, so that is that. Thank you for letting me know. This has been implemented in the latest video. And I'll even do a little smiley face. Smile. Okay, brilliant. So I love stuff like that. HZ enable asserts, never enabled. Yeah, I know. I discussed this on Discord as well. So this is something that, again, HZ enable asserts, if we look at core.h, just so you guys get an example of where it's used, we have enable asserts. I put this behind a macro. This isn't actually defined anywhere, which means currently asserts are disabled. So what we could do is add it into the premake file, of course. So if we look at the premake file, we have our defines. We could just easily just add that in there. I don't want to define it there though. We could have it there for kind of debug, but I'd rather define it in code. So what I'm going to do is inside core.h, I'm going to say that if not defined hz enable asserts, or rather, you know what, let's do it this way. If hz debug is defined, then I'm going to define hz enable asserts. Now, technically speaking, I don't want this to be an if def, I want it to be an if. Okay, that way, right, if hz enable asserts is actually set to like 1 or something like that, then I can actually, if we look at the premake file again, if it's been set at all, right, then you can actually forcibly in the build script set, you know, this to 0, right, or to false or something like that, right? Doesn't matter, usually 0. What that means is that this has in fact been defined, right? But it's been defined to 0, which means this still is off, right? But if you haven't defined it at all, that's where this code takes over and by default turns it on. So that's something that I want to do in the future, okay? But I want to do that specifically for other things and in a separate episode. So for now, this is just becoming, if HZDebug is defined, we always turn asserts on. And so now asserts have been enabled. So I'll probably discuss this a little bit more with what I said there before I close it. Okay, so that's that. Pull request we didn't get to, we'll get to that next time. But hopefully this was a really good overview of kind of GitHub and how we can kind of collaborate on Hazel together. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, you can hit that like button. You can help support the series by going over to patreon.com/thecherno. Huge thank you to everyone who helps support the series. Hazel wouldn't be here without you guys, I promise you that. So thank you so much. If you just help support that series, you'll get episodes about a week early, as well as also access to a private development branch in which I've already got a lot of the stuff developed, and that's kind of the one that I just go along with and do stuff in my spare time. Next time, I think we're gonna just move on. I would love, maybe I'll do pull requests next time, I don't know. I'm really interested to see your feedback for this episode. Did you guys like this kind of episode? It's something that we just have to do every now and then, just kind of a maintenance episode, because obviously we do end up kind of building up a little bit of tech debt, and also I want to spend time collaborating with you guys. Hopefully this makes you feel more involved in Hazel. So if, for example, you do want to have a go at writing features, that would be great. I'm sure that a lot of you will probably not end up writing it the way that I want to write it, and because obviously I'm kind of trying to teach as well, I'll probably end up writing it my way kind of anyway, but I'm happy to review your stuff on these actual videos and talk about why, you know, we can talk about design. You guys can submit code in the form of issues or pull requests or whatever, and I can look at it and we can kind of just talk about why, you know, I might not do it this way, or maybe you guys will give me great ideas, right? So that's what I want to kind of encourage here, this kind of spirit of collaboration, because together, you know, we can build Hazel and make it pretty cool. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.